Disclaimer. This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. I am not a doctor, and this is not medical advice. Always talk to a qualified healthcare provider before starting or stopping any medication, peptide, or supplement, especially if you have a medical condition or take prescription medications. Welcome back to the Peptide Effect podcast. Today we are talking about something that has been lighting the weight loss world on fire, and honestly, it might be one of the most exciting compounds we have seen in decades. Retatrutide. Some people are calling it the future of weight loss. Some people are calling it the next Ozempic. Some people are calling it the triple threat that could change obesity medicine forever. But what is Retatrutide really? How does it work? Why are researchers so excited about it? And is it actually better than semaglutide or tirzepatide? Today we are going to break all of it down in plain English. Mechanism, research results, benefits, side effects, and why Retatrutide is being watched like a hawk by the entire pharmaceutical and longevity world. So settle in because this is going to be a good one. Let's start with the basics. Retatrutide is a medication being studied for obesity and metabolic disease. It is part of a newer class of drugs that target hormones involved in appetite, insulin regulation, blood sugar, and fat metabolism. Now, if you have been in the peptide and weight loss space for even a little while, you have definitely heard of GLP-1. GLP-1 is the famous one. GLP-1 receptor agonists are what made Ozempic and Wegovy household names. Then came tirzepatide, also known as Mounjaro or Zepbound, which is a dual agonist, meaning it hits two hormone pathways instead of one. And now we have Retatrutide, which is considered a triple agonist. This is where things get spicy. Retatrutide targets three major receptors: GLP-1, GIP, and glucagon. So yes, three. Not one, not two, three. And that third one, glucagon, is what makes Retatrutide so unique and potentially so powerful. So let's talk about what these hormones actually do, because if you understand this part, you will understand why Retatrutide is being called the future. First, GLP-1. GLP-1 is a hormone your body naturally releases after you eat. It tells your brain, hey, we're full. It slows gastric emptying, meaning food stays in your stomach longer. It helps reduce appetite. It also stimulates insulin release when glucose is present, which helps lower blood sugar. So GLP-1 is basically the appetite control and blood sugar stabilizer hormone. That's why semaglutide works so well. Now, let's talk about GIP. GIP is another hormone released after meals. It also stimulates insulin release. But it does something else too. It appears to improve metabolic flexibility and fat storage regulation. Now, for a long time, scientists were confused about GP because it can act differently depending on metabolic health. But when GIP is combined with GLP-1 stimulation like in tirzepatide, we see something really interesting. Better blood sugar control, more weight loss, and in many people, fewer side effects compared to GLP-1 alone. That's why tirzepatide has been outperforming semaglutide in a lot of head-to-head comparisons. Now, let's get to the third receptor, glucagon. Glucagon is often misunderstood. Most people think glucagon is the opposite of insulin because it raises blood sugar. And yes, it does. But glucagon also increases energy expenditure. It increases fat burning. It influences how the liver processes energy. And it can increase thermogenesis, meaning it can literally raise the metabolic furnace. So if GLP-1 helps you eat less, and GIP helps you regulate insulin and metabolism more effectively, glucagon may help you burn more. That's the big idea. Less in, more out. Appetite suppression plus metabolic acceleration. And that is why Retatrutide has obesity researchers basically acting like kids on Christmas morning. Because if you can safely activate all three pathways, you might get a compound that not only helps someone lose weight, but helps them lose more weight, faster, and possibly with a better fat loss profile. So now you understand why Retatrutide is being called the triple agonist. GLP-1, GIP, and glucagon. Now, let's talk about what the research is actually showing, because this is where it gets wild. Retatrutide has been studied in clinical trials for obesity. And in early studies, participants lost a shocking amount of weight. We are not talking 5%. We are not talking 10%. We are talking numbers that start to rival bariatric surgery results. In some studies, high-dose retatrutide users lost over 20% of their body weight. That is massive. That's not just, I dropped a few pounds. That is, I have a completely different body. That is, my knees don't hurt anymore. That is, my blood pressure normalized. That is, my A1C dropped. That is, I can fit into clothes I haven't worn in 10 years. This is the kind of weight loss that changes lives. Now, I want you to pause and really understand how insane that is. Most weight loss programs fail because your body fights you. Your metabolism adapts. Your hunger hormones rise. Your cravings increase. Your energy drops. Your body is basically screaming, "Stop trying to lose weight. We think we're starving." That's why weight loss is not just willpower. It's biology. Retatrutide is essentially hacking that biology. It is changing appetite signaling, insulin response, satiety hormones, and energy expenditure at the same time. It is attacking obesity from multiple angles. That's why people are calling it the future. Because obesity is not a single pathway problem. It's a multi-system problem. So a multi-system approach makes sense. Now, let's talk about what makes retatrutide different from semaglutide. Semaglutide is a GLP-1 agonist. It is amazing. It works. But semaglutide mainly focuses on appetite suppression and slower gastric emptying. It does help metabolic markers, but it is mostly about eating less. Retatrutide, on the other hand, adds GP and glucagon activity. This may improve not just appetite control, but how the body burns fat and uses energy. That's why some people on retatrutide are seeing even greater reductions in weight. Now, let's compare it to tirzepatide. Tirzepatide is GLP-1 plus GIP. So tirzepatide is already a beast. It has been producing weight loss results that semaglutide struggled to match. So retatrutide is like tirzepatide's bigger, scarier cousin, because it adds glucagon. Now, does that mean retatrutide is automatically better? Not necessarily, because glucagon comes with its own risks and challenges. Remember, glucagon can raise blood sugar. So the drug has to be balanced correctly so that the GLP-1 and GIP effects offset the glucose-raising effects of glucagon. And that is one reason researchers are being extremely careful. But so far, the data is very promising. Now, let's talk about the fat loss aspect, because this is something a lot of people care about. Not just weight loss, but what kind of weight is being lost. Is it fat? Is it muscle? Is it water? When you lose weight quickly, you always risk losing muscle. And muscle loss is one of the biggest dangers in rapid weight loss. Because muscle is metabolic currency. Muscle supports longevity. Muscle supports glucose control. Muscle supports bone density. Muscle supports mobility as you age. So if someone loses 20% of their body weight but loses a huge amount of muscle, that's not a win. That's skinny fat. That's fragile. That's metabolically weaker. So one of the things people are watching with retatrutide is whether it preserves lean mass better than other GLP-1 drugs. Now, we do not have full long-term answers yet, but early results suggest that the weight loss is substantial and may have a favorable fat reduction profile. But we still have to be realistic. If someone is on retatrutide and not lifting weights, not eating enough protein, and not supporting their body, they will lose muscle. It is almost guaranteed. So anyone using this class of drug needs to treat it like a serious metabolic tool, not a magic injection. You still need strength training. You still need protein. You still need hydration. You still need electrolytes. You still need sleep. Because retatrutide might suppress your appetite so much that you forget to nourish your body. And that can be dangerous. Now, let's talk about how retatrutide feels for most people. Based on what we know about GLP-1 style compounds and what early reports suggest, retatrutide can create powerful appetite suppression. Some people describe it as food noise disappearing. That's a phrase you hear a lot. Food noise, meaning the constant mental chatter about food. What am I going to eat next? Should I snack? I need something sweet. I need something salty. That constant pull. Many people say Retatrutide and other GLP-1 drugs quiet that voice. And for some people, it is the first time in their life they have felt mentally free from food obsession. That is huge, because many people struggling with obesity are not lazy. They are not weak. They are not undisciplined. They're dealing with a brain and hormone system that is pushing them toward hunger and cravings constantly. So for those people, this medication can feel like someone finally turned off the hunger alarm. Now, what about the side effects? Because if something is this powerful, you know it is not going to be completely smooth. The most common side effects reported in Retatrutide studies are similar to other GLP-1 drugs.
Nausea,
Vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, fatigue, loss of appetite, which is technically a desired effect, but can become a problem if it gets too extreme. Some people also report acid reflux. Some people report burping. And some people report food aversions. Now, the severity of side effects often depends on dose and titration speed. If you ramp up too fast, you're going to suffer. That is why pharmaceutical protocols usually start low and increase slowly. Your body needs time to adapt. Your digestive system needs time to adjust. Because GLP-1 drugs slow gastric emptying, and that alone can cause major nausea if you eat too much or eat too fast. Now, let's talk about something else important. Retatrutide may increase heart rate. This is something that has been observed with some drugs that involve glucagon receptor activity. So researchers are monitoring cardiovascular effects closely. This does not automatically mean it is dangerous, but it means it must be studied thoroughly. And that is why Retatrutide is still being evaluated in clinical trials. Because the goal is not just massive weight loss. The goal is safe, massive weight loss. Now, if you are listening and you are thinking, okay, this sounds amazing, why is everyone not on Retatrutide already? Because it is not widely approved yet. It is still in the research pipeline. It is being developed by Eli Lilly, the same company behind tirzepatide. And the timeline for approval depends on how the trials go. But many people believe Retatrutide could become a major player in the next wave of obesity medications. Now, let's talk about why obesity medication is such a big deal right now. Because this is not just about aesthetics. Obesity is one of the largest drivers of chronic disease in the modern world. It increases risk of type 2 diabetes. It increases risk of cardiovascular disease. It increases risk of fatty liver disease. It increases risk of sleep apnea. It increases risk of joint degeneration. It increases risk of stroke. It increases risk of certain cancers. And it impacts mental health, energy, confidence, and quality of life. So when we talk about Retatrutide, we are not talking about a vanity drug. We are talking about something that could reduce disease burden worldwide. And yes, people will use it for cosmetic weight loss. That is already happening with semaglutide. But the deeper impact is metabolic medicine. Now, let's talk about metabolic adaptation because this is one of the reasons Retatrutide may shine. When you lose weight, your body fights back. Your metabolism slows down. Your hunger hormones rise. Your leptin drops. Your body tries to regain the weight. That is why weight loss maintenance is harder than weight loss itself. Retatrutide may help overcome some of that by increasing energy expenditure through glucagon receptor stimulation. In other words, it might not just reduce intake. It might also push output upward. Now, that is the theory. And early evidence suggests it may be happening. But again, long-term studies will tell us how well it works for maintenance. Because the biggest challenge in obesity treatment is not losing weight. It is keeping it off. Now, let's talk about something else people are curious about. How fast does Retatrutide work? In studies, weight loss occurs progressively over weeks and months. Like other GLP-1 drugs, it is not instant. You're not going to inject and wake up skinny the next day. But many people notice appetite suppression quickly, sometimes within days. And over time, as the dose increases, the weight loss becomes more dramatic. But here is something important. Rapid weight loss is not always healthy weight loss. If you lose too quickly, you can get gallbladder issues. You can get nutrient deficiencies. You can get fatigue. You can get hair shedding. You can lose muscle. So even though the results are exciting, it is still important to approach it like a serious health intervention. Now, let's talk about dosing. In clinical settings, retatrutide dosing is carefully controlled and escalated gradually. And because it is a long-acting compound, it is typically administered as a weekly injection, similar to semaglutide and tirzepatide. That weekly schedule is part of why these drugs are so popular. People do not want daily injections. Weekly is convenient. Now, some people wonder if retatrutide will replace semaglutide and tirzepatide completely. And the answer is probably not. Different people respond differently to different drugs. Some people tolerate semaglutide beautifully. Some people cannot tolerate it at all. Some people do better on tirzepatide. Some people may find retatrutide too strong, or too harsh on digestion, or too stimulating. So, it is likely we will see a spectrum of options. Just like antidepressants. Just like blood pressure meds. Just like ADHD medications. One person's miracle is another person's nightmare. Now, let's get into one of the most interesting aspects of retatrutide. The glucagon component. Because this is the part that could potentially change the entire obesity drug landscape. Glucagon has historically been viewed as a hormone that raises blood sugar. So, why would we want to stimulate it? Because glucagon also mobilizes fat. It can increase lipolysis. It can increase fatty acid oxidation. And it can increase energy expenditure. It can also influence liver metabolism. So when you combine glucagon receptor stimulation with GLP-1, you may get a compound that burns fat while suppressing appetite. It's like having a built-in cut cycle. Now, does that mean it is going to make everyone shredded?
No.
But it could mean more weight loss and possibly a different body composition effect compared to GLP-1 alone. Now, let's talk about real-world application. If retatrutide becomes widely available, it will likely be used in several populations. People with obesity who have struggled for years. People with type 2 diabetes. People with metabolic syndrome. People with fatty liver disease. And possibly even people who are overweight but not obese, depending on guidelines. Now here is where things get controversial. Because we are entering an era where weight loss drugs are becoming lifestyle drugs. And that raises ethical questions. Who should get them?
Who pays for them?
Should insurance cover them? Should they be reserved for high-risk patients? Or should anyone who wants to lose weight have access? This is an ongoing debate. But what is undeniable is that these medications are changing how we treat obesity. For the first time, obesity is being treated like a medical condition, not a moral failure. And that shift is long overdue. Now, let's talk about something else. What happens when you stop retatrutide? This is a big one. Because with semaglutide and tirzepatide, we have seen that many people regain weight after stopping. Not everyone, but many.
Why?
Because the medication is managing appetite and metabolism while you're on it. If you stop, the hunger signals return. The appetite returns. And if lifestyle habits have not been rebuilt, weight regain is very likely. So, retatrutide will probably be similar. It may be a long-term therapy. And that is something people need to be prepared for mentally. This is not a quick fix. This is not a 3-month injection, and then you are cured forever. For many people, obesity is a chronic condition. And chronic conditions often require chronic management. Now, could someone use retatrutide to lose weight, then transition to lifestyle and maintain without it?
Yes.
That is possible. But it requires planning.
Protein.
Strength training. Metabolic support. Mindset changes. Sleep. Stress management. And maybe other supportive compounds. Now, if you are listening and you are thinking, okay, retatrutide sounds like the ultimate solution, what is the catch? The catch is we do not have decades of long-term data yet. We have promising trials. We have exciting results. But long-term safety always matters. We need to know about cardiovascular outcomes. We need to know about thyroid issues. We need to know about pancreatitis risk. We need to know about gallbladder effects. We need to know about long-term muscle preservation. We need to know about psychological effects. And we need to know about what happens when millions of people take it for years. Because there is a big difference between a trial and real life. Now, another question people ask is whether retatrutide could help with addictions. Because GLP-1 drugs have been reported to reduce cravings for alcohol, nicotine, and even compulsive behaviors. This is a fascinating area of research. GLP-1 receptors exist in the brain reward pathways. So when these drugs reduce food cravings, they may also reduce other cravings. And some early anecdotal reports suggest this may be true. So retatrutide could potentially impact not only weight loss, but reward behavior. Now, we do not have enough evidence yet to claim that as fact, but it is something to watch. Now, let's talk about a major practical reality. If retatrutide becomes approved, it will likely be expensive. Semaglutide and tirzepatide are already extremely costly, and demand is massive. Retatrutide, if it outperforms them, will likely be in high demand. So access may be limited initially. And that could create a black market effect, which is already happening with other GLP-1 medications. This is why education is so important, because people will seek it out, regardless of legality, and if they do not understand dosing, titration, and side effects, they can get into trouble. Now, I want to talk about something that is rarely discussed: the emotional side of extreme weight loss. When people lose a huge amount of weight, they often expect their life to magically transform. And some things do improve. Health markers improve. Mobility improves. Confidence can improve. But weight loss does not automatically heal trauma. It does not automatically heal relationship patterns. It does not automatically heal self-image issues. And sometimes, losing weight can actually trigger emotional upheaval. Because you are changing how you cope. If food was your comfort, now it is gone. If food was your reward, now it is gone. If food was your identity, now it changes. So people using powerful appetite-suppressing drugs sometimes need psychological support too. Because the brain is adjusting, not just the body. Now, let's talk about retatrutide and exercise. This is where I want you to pay attention. Because people assume that weight loss drugs mean you do not have to exercise. But if you want the best outcome, you should absolutely be exercising. Retatrutide can help you lose weight, but exercise will help you keep muscle. Exercise will help you shape your body. Exercise will help you maintain metabolic health. Exercise will help you maintain insulin sensitivity. And exercise will help you prevent the dreaded skinny fat look. So if you're going to use something like retatrutide, you need a plan. Lift weights 2 to 4 times per week. Prioritize protein. Hydrate.
Sleep.
And do not starve yourself. Because if you eat too little, you will crash your energy, lose muscle, and feel awful. Now, let's talk about the biggest myth in the weight loss world. The myth that eating less is all you need. In reality, hormones control appetite. Hormones control metabolism. Stress controls cortisol. Sleep controls ghrelin. And inflammation changes everything. Retatrutide is powerful because it works with hormones. It works with the biology that has been working against people. Now, will retatrutide cure obesity?
No.
Because obesity is not one disease. It is a complex metabolic condition influenced by genetics, environment, trauma, diet, microbiome, stress, sleep, and modern lifestyle. But retatrutide could be one of the most effective tools we have ever had. Now, let's talk about the future. Because this is not just about retatrutide. Retatrutide is a preview of what is coming. Multi-agonist drugs, triple agonists, quadruple agonists, customized metabolic therapies, combination therapies, weight loss drugs that also improve cardiovascular outcomes, weight loss drugs that also improve inflammation, weight loss drugs that also improve brain health. This is the direction we are heading. We are entering an era where obesity treatment is becoming precision medicine. And if you think about it, that is exactly how it should be. Now, as exciting as this is, we need to stay grounded. Retatrutide is powerful, but it is not magic. People still need to eat nutrient-dense food. People still need to move their bodies. People still need to build muscle. People still need to support their hormones. And people still need to manage stress. Because no medication can outwork a lifestyle that is constantly damaging the system. Now, could retatrutide be the closest thing to a weight loss miracle we have ever seen? Maybe. The data is extremely impressive, but miracles still require responsibility. Now, before we wrap up, I want to summarize what you need to remember. Retatrutide is a triple receptor agonist. It targets GLP-1, which reduces appetite and improves blood sugar. It targets GIP, which enhances insulin regulation and metabolic effects. And it targets glucagon, which may increase energy expenditure and fat burning. That triple mechanism is why it is producing massive weight loss numbers in clinical trials. It may outperform semaglutide. It may outperform tirzepatide. And it may become one of the most important obesity medications ever created. But it also comes with side effects, mostly gastrointestinal, like nausea, constipation, diarrhea, and vomiting. And researchers are watching cardiovascular markers closely, including heart rate. Long-term data is still being collected. But if current trends hold, retatrutide could absolutely reshape the future of weight loss. And the biggest takeaway is this. We are watching obesity medicine evolve in real time. And retatrutide is at the front of that wave. Disclaimer. This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. I am not a doctor, and this is not medical advice. Retatrutide and similar medications can have serious side effects and may not be appropriate for everyone. Always speak with a qualified healthcare provider before starting any weight loss medication, peptide, or metabolic therapy. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you follow the podcast and share it with someone who loves learning about peptides, fat loss science, and the future of metabolic health. Because we're just getting started. Thanks for listening, keep learning, and stay curious.